right, well, fall is a great time to think about planting a tree. So first we're talking about container trees.
Right, because container trees are going to be your best bet for early fall planting.
Okay.
These are ones that can be planted 12 months out of the year because all their roots are right here in a nice compact little package. So you don't have to wait for any particular time to plant a container tree. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between a containerized tree and a balled and burlapped. Balled and burlapped is one that's actually dug out of a nursery and wrapped with a burlap with a bigger root ball on it.
Okay.
Those can only be dug during the dormant season, really, for the most part. So they're being dug in late October, November,
Okay.
December, and then again very early spring. But you can't go and get fresh, brand new balled and burlap trees in September and early October. It's just you can't do it without putting the tree at risk. But if you have container trees, that's the beauty of putting a container tree in the ground now, because when you pull this out of the pot, you still have to worry about the roots, and you still do need to score the roots, which means taking a sharp knife or a blade and cutting it down in about 3 different spots and pulling those roots apart. And yes, that will cause this to go into shock a little
Okay.
bit, but going into shock in September, October is fine because all these leaves are going to be dropping off anyway.
Okay.
But you really need to make sure those roots are getting disturbed so that they're
Right.
not growing in the shape of the container.
So they're spreading out.
Spreading out. Whenever you plant any tree, you always want to dig a wider hole. So if you were doing this one, you don't necessarily need to do a deeper hole than the depth of the soil. And
Okay.
if
We don't want to smother it to death.
Right. If you were looking at where this depth of the soil is, it's about right here. You only need to dig a hole as deep as the root ball is. You don't want to dig it much deeper because then when you put this in, it actually settles
Right.
and it becomes, it's planted too deep.
Yeah, a lot of times you're mulching and everything, so then you're
Right.
just compiling.
So it's actually better to plant it a little bit higher and then just
Okay.
dig as big and wide a hole as you can so those roots can get out into the soil this way.
Mm-hmm.
And we always recommend to put some kind of a planting mix, like a soil amendment, usually about a ratio of 1/3 soil amendment to 2/3 natural soil. And when you're doing that, you're going to generate some extra soil, so you'll be planting this a little bit higher and then bring the soil level up to it just a
Okay.
little bit. So you kind of almost have a slightly raised little wide planting area. The worst thing you can do is basically plant it this high and just mount a bunch of soil up around it. That's going to dry out very, very quickly. So you're going to want to dig down and raise it up just a little bit.
But speaking of drying out, that's critical, is watering in the
Right.
fall if you're planting.
Absolutely. Getting these things off to a good start. Really, you need to monitor that very, very closely for the first 2 or 3 weeks
Okay.
after planting, especially if you're using planting a container tree, because these guys are used to being watered on a daily basis
Yeah.
in the garden center and the nursery. So you can't just put it in the ground and forget about it. That's another reason people like fall planting, because once this tree loses its leaves, the water requirements for it are a lot less than if
Right.
you're planting it in the springtime. Once the leaves drop, you still do want to water every few days to get those roots going.
Right.
So
All right. Well, sounds like it's a great time to come out, pick out a tree, and put one in the
get it
ground.
planted. That's exactly right.
If people have questions for you, Richard?
You can come out and see us at Springhouse Gardens at 185 West Catnip Hill Road. Also email us at greatplants@springhousegardens.com.